Good evening. Welcome to tonight's school board meeting. It's 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with that, we do have a matter for non-public. If I could get a motion to move into non-public.
I move that we go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, for the matters of
Student.
Second.
Moved by Janine, second by Dick. Roll call, please.
Janine,
Rich.
Dick. Craig.
Liz,
Steve, yes.
Kira,
Jim.
Kevin.
Jerry.
Catherine.
Tim. With that, we are now in non-public. We'll be right back.
I move that we seal the minutes for a period of 5 years.
A motion by Janine to seal the minutes for a period of 5 years, second by Catherine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are sealed. All right, hold on, folks. We're just letting the public back into the meeting. If there's no objection from the board, we're going to move past points of pride and go straight to the first public comment period of tonight's meeting. Any objection to moving past that agenda item? Hearing none, seeing none. We are now on to our first period of public comment. The primary purpose of board meetings is to conduct the business of the district. It is not the same as town meeting or deliberative session. Each speaker will be provided 2 minutes to speak. Each speaker may only speak once during each meeting. There is no legal requirement for the board to have public comment periods, but it is really good practice and to do so, and is an important part of local governance. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Speakers may not use threats of physical violence, may not speak or conduct themselves in a way that incites violence or is disruptive, may not be vulgar or obscene, and need to speak to the business related to the school board and operations of the district. The school board will not permit repetitive, harassing, or frivolous speech or comments that are off-topic, antagonistic, obscene, or libelous, as such statements will be considered out of order and will not be tolerated. The board chair may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if the speaker does not follow the rule of order. Repeated refusals to comply will result in removal from the meeting. Public comment is not a question and answer period. In general, the board will not answer questions asked or respond to comments made by members of the public. So with that, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. I will point in your general direction. When you come up to the microphone, press the little button. The light will turn green. That will indicate that that mic is live so that people that are listening at home can hear you. I will then start the timer. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. What? Speakers are finished. Oh, right. Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, sorry, yep, whoever you are, I don't know your name. Sorry, I don't know all of you. What? Sorry, go ahead. One
Excuse
second.
me, could you make sure if you're speaking, you put your name, and your town of residence so that we can get it for the minutes? Thank you.
Thank you. So push the little button, the light will turn green, and then when you start, after you say your name, I'll start your timer.
All right, my name's Alyssa, and my kids are in Peterborough.
You can sit right there in that chair.
Okay.
That'll be easier for you. Perfect.
And I'm actually going to read it off of my phone.
That's fine.
because-
Great. Go ahead.
All right, I'm speaking today for masks to be optional for our children. We as parents should be able to make that medical choice for them, not the school board. What data are you guys using? Because COVID-19 cases in Peterborough, as of this morning, there's 7 total. And according to the 2020 census, the population of Peterborough is 6,700. Those are pretty good numbers if you ask me. The CDC recommends wearing a mask. They're not requiring it. We're asking you to continue to follow these CDC guidelines. Our children have suffered for over a year and have sacrificed enough. Part of your job as a school board is to put the students first. I ask you to set your personal beliefs aside. Children are not susceptible to COVID-19, but you're making them feel like they're the problem. Telling them their masks are to protect others. Saying teachers and staff are in danger. Well, now everybody has had the vaccine or they've had the opportunity to get it. There is no reason our children need to protect the already protected vaccinated population. I have 3 children in this school district. It didn't take my husband or myself long to realize how different our kids are. They learn differently, they need different forms of punishment, they love differently, and they take care of others differently. We as their parents can address these things differently for each child what works for best for our children. How in the world can you mandate a mask for every single child in this school district and say it's best for every single one of them? We all know that's not correct. Masking can cause anxiety and trauma in some children. From the survey that was sent out, there was 300 kids that would not return to school due to issues of masking causes. I think that's something we all really need to think about. If you as a parent want to put your mask on your child's face, that's your choice, and I 100% support you. I'm just asking you give us that same exact respect. I'm asking you give the I'm asking you give the same respect because their mental and emotional health is just as important as their physical health. We're here to demand masks are optional for our children. Thank you.
Make sure to tell us who you are, where you're from, and then I'll start your timer.
My name is Erin Nolan, and I am from Peterborough. I am also speaking in regards to the mask policy that was just changed. I feel very confused, and I feel very confused because I feel like decisions are being made on feelings and not local facts. I was informed that we are using a public health region to determine COVID guidelines instead of actual local numbers. I'm sure many of you are aware, but the actual local numbers in our 9 district towns are extremely low. I'll read them for you. In Antrim, we have 1 to 4 cases with 2 new. In Bennington, we have 1 to 4 cases with 0 new. In Dublin, we have 1 to 4 cases with 2 new. In Francistown, we have 0 cases with 0 new. In Greenfield, we have 1 to 4 cases with 1 new. In Hancock, we have 1 to 4 cases with 0 new. In Peterborough, we have a whopping 7 cases with 2 new. In Sharon, 0 and 0 new. And in Temple, 0 and 0 new. We are simply asking to make decisions based on true local data, not fear or feelings. The other districts that surround us have chosen to make masks optional. This would be Conant, Messinic, and Hillsborough-Deering. I see no reason why we can't follow suit and make masks optional for our children. Thank you.
Make sure the green light is.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Lamoth. I'm from Peterborough. So I understand that you probably have no intention of changing your policy, but I am going to sleep better tonight knowing that I came here to say what I think. You guys speak of masking as if it is the be-all and end-all of mitigation strategies, but masking only works when it's done correctly. And I can promise you, as someone who was taught face-to-face during this pandemic, that most children and most adults are not great at wearing masks. You might observe children happily wearing masks in the grocery store for an hour, but this is not what it looks like after 10 hours, which is what you've all mandated. It doesn't look like this after the mask has been touched, removed, put on desks, moistened, contaminated dozens of times. Never mind the fact that the mask was likely not properly cleaned if it's cloth. They need to be boiled every night, or if it actually fits correctly, right? So at best, masks are hygiene theater that offer a false sense of security and actually encourage children to ignore other mitigation strategies such as hand washing and social distancing, which are more effective. So at worst, we are damaging these kids by handicapping their ability to connect with their peers and interpret both verbal and nonverbal cues. If I had more time, I could talk about the mental health crisis that our children are facing. And is there not one of you here that is concerned about the impact of extended and seemingly indefinite masking of our children? If we allow decisions to be made based on fear-mongering and terror journalism, we are going to have our kids in masks forever. This is no way to live and certainly no way to experience childhood. And certainly not a lifestyle to force on other people. So I strongly object to this message, especially the message we are sending to our young girls that they do not have authority over their bodies. I am fully aware that you have no intention of changing your mind with this, but I would like to know, and I haven't heard yet, the actual plan for what this looks like when you're enforcing it. How are you going to enforce this?
Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Selena White, mom of 3 from Temple, and advocate for unmasking children in school. I want to start off by saying that I believe masking in school should be a choice, and even though I don't believe in it, I fully respect the decision of any family that wishes to do so, as it is their right to make that healthcare choice for their child. Masking children affects physical and mental health, causing increased anxiety, increased headaches, difficulty concentrating, increased levels of CO2, drowsiness, etc. They provide a moist environment for bacteria to grow, and when wet or dirty, cause trouble breathing and may not work well. According to epidemiologist Michael Ostrom, member of Biden's COVID task force, many of the face cloth coverings are not very effective in reducing any of the virus movement. The day I found out that masks were mandatory, it was in the mid-90s, and made me think of all the times my son had to wear a mask outside in that heat. In addition, children are low risk of getting and spreading COVID due to the lack of ACE2 receptors in their nostrils. As of last Sunday, less than 2% of U.S. children with COVID require hospitalization, and 0.00% to 0.03% are fatal. Even more so, COVID outbreaks are very low in our community, with only 2 recent cases in the 8 towns as of last Sunday. Our own governor even stated, at this point, there is no need for students to be wearing masks. I don't believe there is any science behind masking children, and find it interesting that not a single grant was dedicated to studying masks in children out of the $42 billion the National Institute of Health spent on research. Please let us decide what's best for our children and make masking children in school a choice. Thank you. And I also did the PowerPoint, and if you could also look at some options that could happen after this. Thank you.
What I placed on your desk.
My name is Caleb White, father of 3 in Temple, New Hampshire. I prepared this. I'm going to try my best to be kind. I would like to give you guys the benefit of the doubt and assume that you have not seen this kind of support in favor of unmasking in schools, and you've gone on what you believed to be what the population wants for this area. To do anything other than that would be to go against what we've elected you guys to do. And hopefully you guys understand that you have come under the spotlight and will be viewed upon moving forward. I know that I'm going to raise as much awareness as I can to these board meetings, to the election process to elect these board members. And I hope that you guys can put serious thought into doing what your people that have elected you to do, what they want, not just the 5% who scream the loudest on Facebook, because that does not represent the rest of us working folk who don't have the time to come to every single board meeting, but we'll make the time on something this important for our children. I know that if this mask mandate is not reversed, my children will not attend public school this year. We will private school our children, because the point of school is to teach our children how to go forth into the world, not scare them away from the world. It is completely unacceptable, and it goes furthermore. You guys don't actually have the right to do it. It is an infringement on our personal freedoms, which this country was founded on, to choose what is best for our health. We are not impacting anyone's. There's no studies, there's no information on the benefits of wearing a mask at all, except for a few doctors' recommendations in the CDC, which has been wrong time and time again. So please, I'm giving you guys the benefit of the doubt. I assume you guys are just going off of what you've thought you've seen, because I can see, there's the 10% of the population is very loud. And I don't think you guys realize how much of the population is actually against this, because we're too busy making a living supporting this school district. Thank you guys very much. I hope you guys will do the right thing.
Before I start my time speaking, just in other districts, the policy has been to not have any kind of clapping or applauding, just so other people don't feel that they are not supported or that there is more people supporting them than not. Just as if I wouldn't want to face. All right. So I first want to thank the COVID task force and board for moving the district into the green phase, because we are seeing an obvious increase in cases in the greater Monadnock region. I know there was some initial confusion over how the change from blue to green was made in the mask matrix, but hopefully more people understand now. We cannot simply look at our towns when it comes to transmission, because many of us commute outside the area for work, shopping, and recreation. We live in the middle of nowhere. The mask matrix provided by DHHS is reasonable and allows flexibility. For example, the high school, if at 80% vaccination rate, masks wouldn't be required there. I know that masks have been a hot topic, obviously, on social media and across the nation. I implore people to go look at sources of experts, unbiased, people who have evidence to support their claims, which is what I try to teach my 8th grade science students. I forwarded the board articles supporting the facts that wearing of masks do not significantly decrease oxygen or increase carbon dioxide. Children can discern emotions by looking at a person's eyes and use other cues to understand what a person is saying when they cannot read lips due to wearing a mask. Have mask acne? Make sure your mask fits properly and that you do not readjust it to therefore leave dirt on your face. Another thing to consider is the attitude that exists in your household concerning masks. Children often mimic the sentiments and opinions of their parents. The school district requires students to be vaccinated against certain diseases before being part of public school. And I think many parents forget that that medical decision is made before they enter the doors. I know the district will do their best to give students mask breaks, whether it be at a distance of 6 feet or outdoors. Anxiety will be caused by many things during this time, including unemployment, food insecurities, deaths, me even speaking here tonight. But the board has a responsibility to keep students educated in the safest way, and that is their priority as the board. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board?
Hi, good evening. My name is Ross Kukish with a family of 3 in Peterborough, New Hampshire. I'm just writing to strongly disagree about the wearing of masks in school. I have a personal, I'm very concerned about my oldest daughter. She has a vocal issue now that I don't know where it came from other than where it would come from the masks. And I don't know, doing research, of course, the worst thing you can do is Google things and then it turns into something else. And I know some other people that have had styes and some other issues with wearing masks. And I know my other daughter has, she's learning, she's in speech therapy, and it's very important for her to get the full encompass of what's going on. My mom was a speech pathologist, or was in special education, and she, was very strong in that. I feel like also we're losing touch with the overall well and health and being. We're so focused and driven on COVID lately that, the other aspects of mental health and suicides and depression, and which there are many cases of that, of course, that's going on. There's a lot of things going on in society right now with COVID, but our students need to, our children can't be exposed to even more by this fear of masks and everything and COVID and whatnot. And I just feel that you guys should really make a decision on options that our parents, as parents, we can direct what's best for our children for the best education that, they deserve in our district. So I hope that you guys would reconvene on what's going on with the masks. Thank you.
My name's Mackenzie, and I'm from Peterborough. I have a son that started school in the district last year. Just food for thought. One thing that happened to him last year is every day for at least the first month, he came home crying because I would say, how did it go? Who'd you play with? What'd you do? He had no idea who anybody was. He had anxiety leaving recess because he didn't know who his teacher was. Every day the mask changes, every day the outfit changes. The only thing that stays the same is their face. They can't see that. So he had no idea who his teacher was or what his friends looked like. There were some kids in his class who he's met prior to, and we're not super close with, but he had met them in his life before. And I'd say, was, so-and-so did you see her? Did you play with her? I don't know what she looks like. And I'd show him a picture and he'd be like, I don't know because I can't see her face. He came home crying every day because he didn't know. And now he has severe anxiety about going back to school. And we've now had to enroll him. And he's seen multiple times, he's seen a child therapist because he has anxiety about things in school and in the world. A little food for thought that, this is what they're seeing. And for a lot of kids, it's scary. And they don't remember who people look like or who their teacher is. Because truly, if you think about it, our clothes change every day. The only thing that stays the same is our face. So I hope you reconsider.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in this room that wishes to make public comment before I ask the folks from the overflow room? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Katie Cartier. I have 3 children, 3 stepchildren, so 6 total. Not necessarily in this district, but a lot. I actually made the choice to homeschool my kids because it would have been their first year in public school last year, and I did not feel it was a good time for them to experience public school. So I am here today just to speak out for the parents who couldn't be here today, to speak out for the children who can't speak, for the ones who don't know how or couldn't make the meeting or just, any of them. I just want to reiterate, when we send our kids to public school, we are entrusting our children, our precious children, with the decisions that you have made for them, okay? You are elected officials, elected by us, the taxpayers, the parents, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, okay? I've lived in this district my whole life. I love this area. We're a very tight-knit community of people amongst these 9 towns. And I'm seeing that change, and that's really, really disturbing to me. And, I just really want you guys to think long and hard about your role in what these children, our future, are going to be thinking when they wake up every morning, when they think of school, and when they think of public school, when they think of their friends, their teachers. What are their thoughts? Are they going to be scared? Are they going to be fearful? Are they going to be like my stepson, for example, he has autism. He's no longer in our district, but one of the reasons that he's not is because he couldn't see people's expressions with the masks on, and being autistic, that gave him immense anxiety and caused a lot of problems. He actually ended up having some mental health issues, which caused him to move out of our home and live somewhere else at the moment because of that. So, I don't want to reiterate what everyone else has said, but just please, we are a good community. We are good people, okay? And I know you all love our kids. You all love your kids. You love your grandkids. You love your nieces, your nephews, your neighbors. It's not just about you, okay? If you want to put a mask on your kids, go right ahead. But you do not have the right to co-parent with me and tell me what to do with my children. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in this room that would like to address the board before I call in the folks from the overflow room? Seeing none. All right, so if there's folks in the overflow room, you should be able to hear me. You can make your way in here. Do I need to have? It's only staff. Oh, it's only staff. Okay, thanks. All right, great. Is there anyone else here before we move on to public comment? All right, hearing none, seeing none. Thank you all for taking the time to come speak to us tonight. The board always appreciates the public's attendance at these meetings and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you very much. With that, we are on to the consent agenda. You have multiple items in there tonight. The personnel, there are both nominations and co-curricular nominations in that package. Are there any objections to the consent agenda as presented to you? Hearing none, seeing none, the consent agenda is adopted. Superintendent's report.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. We have several items related to reopening on the agenda tonight.
Hold on one second, Catherine.
Could I ask that during the superintendent's report, we have an opportunity to talk to the constituents that are here? We have experts from our panel, and the board has made a decision. So during your reopening discussion, if you could reiterate some of the points that you went through that helped us make our decision last time.
Oh, yeah.
That I think that would be helpful so they understand what we base our decisions on and how we came to the decision that we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Jim, can you do me a quick favor, make sure that mic is off so that the audio quality, or someone that's there, just make sure it's not green. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I did send the changes that as I understood them from you, at the last meeting. So, if you go to page 14, the, masking during the blue phase will be optional. During the green phase will be required indoors. During the yellow phase, mask will be required. Once communities or schools reach an 80% vaccination rate, masks may no longer be necessary indoors. And that's a verified vaccination rate within the school. So that was my understanding as you talked. As far as what is blue, what is green, what is, how are those decisions made? Those the recommendations for a transition to from blue to green would be new cases over the previous 14 days per 100,000 people in the Greater Monadnock Public Health Region, is greater than 100 and less than 500, or positivity rate of greater than 10% and less than 50%. Also, in considering those recommendations, the COVID monitoring team also looks at where cases are located. For instance, if cases are clustered in a specific area or facility, so if there were lots of cases at Scott Farrar, that wouldn't necessarily cause a change. What is available for outdoor space? So it's a little different in the fall and the spring when we are able to use outdoor spaces if local medical facilities and personnel are in surge. So if there's a significant amount of stress on our local hospital or our local medical staff, that needs to be considered, as well as we will continue to monitor cases town by town, and we continue to monitor cases within and absences within school, both on the staff side and the student side. When we transition, or if we transition from green to yellow, the new cases over the previous 14 days would be per 100,000 people in the Greater Monadnock Public Health Region is greater than 500, or the positivity rate, and you guys kind of heard that, is greater than 50%, and you heard those other pieces. A transition from yellow to red would only come by a decision of the board, an executive order from the governor, or if New Hampshire DHHS determines that there is a cluster in a particular setting in one of the schools. When the COVID monitoring team considered all of this, if you recall last year when we talked about region, we talked about Merrimack County, Hillsborough County, and Cheshire County. Because Hillsborough is so large and so densely populated, what we were finding was, while Hillsborough County had some really high case rates, the truth was over here in the Greater Monadnock region, we really weren't seeing as many cases. So going with the Greater Monadnock Public Health Region is a more geographically appropriate grouping for us to be in. We do continue to look at things town by town, and the difference between the 100,000 in the COVID, we talked about 50 or 100,000. 100,000 by the CDC is considered a substantial rate of infection and a substantial chance of transmission. So those were the changes related to masking. Those changes were made throughout the document. The other piece around that is, once a community school reaches an 80% vaccination rate, masks are no longer be necessary for indoors. And again, that has to be a verified vaccination rate. Those changes can be found on page 14. The other changes are related to, the other changes were in the text of the document to reflect the changes that you made from in the green phase. And I think that is just about all. Yes. Did I cover what your intent was? The busing piece is federal. We also have Dr. Scholes, who is our
district pediatrician, as
I-
well
I-
as Lara Nimala, Dr. Lara Nimala, who is on the COVID monitoring team to answer questions for the board.
Catherine.
I just think it might be advantageous. Again, we have a group of constituents here who took the time to come and speak to us this evening and express their views. And we should respect their views and also talk to them about the experts that we're using and the science and allow them again to speak. So everyone is, has a better understanding of how we come to our decision making in our district.
Sure.
So then I would look to Dr. Nimala and Dr. Scholl to share.
We don't take questions from the audience because that's not the format that we have at our meetings. But if you want it, Rich, go ahead.
ask a
You can take
question. No,
questions from
can I
us.
start
That's
off?
correct.
All right.
And then, no, you can't.
No.
You can't. I can. That's not the purpose of the. We have a public comment. We have a public comment period. So that already occurred, and you already spoke. Our policy allows for that to occur once per meeting. So it's all. Please, I can now. You can now. Thanks. With that,
May I
Rich.
ask my question, please?
Yep.
All right. So regarding the 80% threshold for vaccination, I guess a data question. So we know, right, how many people at each age range in the district are vaccinated, and we know how many people in each age range live in the district. So can't we actually estimate fairly well what percentage of people in our schools might be vaccinated?
So, I mean, I can yield to them. The census data doesn't break down 12 and older. The census data breaks down 15 and older. So unless there's a data source that gives us a census of 12 and older, the terms of who's eligible to get vaccinated, that is, versus the overall percentage, which you can calculate, the overall percentage is posted by the state. So I'm not sure if that gets to your question. So can I ask the two of you to go sit by that mic so that if you answer a question, we can hear it for the folks that aren't in the room.
So
Hold on 1 minute, Rich, and then we'll
right.
go back to that. And you just gotta push the button so it's green. It means it's live. Thank you. Rich.
So while I understand that precedent, the other immunizations that we
can't hear you.
okay, well, I understand the precedent that you're referring to. The other immunizations that we require certified records of are, one, required by law, and two, are fully approved vaccines. I don't think either of those things are true, so I don't know that the precedent can apply. And what I'm trying to get at is some accurate way of knowing when we get to 80%, because otherwise you're giving, frankly, you're giving a veto to one side or the other to just not answer the question, and then we don't end up ever changing the policy. So if the way I suggested is not sufficient, is there another way possible with the data that you have?
Well, I don't think we can speak to how the schools would do it, but I mean, I think getting verified vaccination records from everyone who gets vaccinated gets a vaccination record. So showing those to the school would be, in my opinion, adequate.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, any other questions for Catherine?
A question that we had was to get to the 80% herd immunity figure, is it both children and adults in the same building to meet 80%, or is it just children and our students that have to be at the 80% threshold? So is it the facility or is it the?
It's the facility.
It's the facility.
Thank you for that. Dr. Ullman, go ahead.
So we're talking about a percentage based on a percentage of both the staff, faculty,
Correct.
and the students.
Correct.
Good, thank you.
That's how that's the standard of herd immunity.
Thank you. Any other questions? Kevin? No? Okay.
I thought,
Oh, I thought I saw Kevin,
I
but
thought Kevin.
I was just expecting it, so noted. Thank you. Catherine?
So I guess my last question is, our local pediatricians running a practice and part of our COVID monitoring team, you deal with children every day. What is your advice on masking and your professional medical opinion that you give to the families that would come in and ask, if their masking was optional, should my child wear a mask at school? What would you be telling them?
We are, as a group in this area, our whole entire practice is recommending masking if you are not vaccinated or you are in a place where people are not vaccinated, especially indoors. The new Delta variant is transmissible to everyone, including those with vaccine, although you get less sick with it, but it's really becoming much more of a problem, and we are universally recommending that people mask.
Thank you. Liz?
I just I'm curious about what your thoughts are on natural immunity as well, because I hear a lot about vaccines and I know there's a lot of controversy just, nationwide, worldwide about immunity as it relates to people who have had COVID-19.
I can't speak to the extent of immunity that we have with the vaccine because it hasn't been around long enough. We do know that there have been many, many people who have gotten COVID for a second time. So we know that natural immunity wanes. And we don't know whether immunity to the Alpha variant will give you any immunity to the Delta variant. There's not enough data out here.
Thank you. Rich?
Regarding the relative importance of masking and vaccination, we've clearly heard from the COVID monitoring team that masks are important enough to mandate, and that's what we've done, right? But is vaccination equally important? Is it multiples as important? Is it less important? Could you give us your opinion of the importance of people getting vaccinated when eligible, please?
Yeah, vaccination is how we're going to get out of this pandemic, to be vaccinated against coronavirus. Masking is a way right now that we can help mitigate and protect our children that 12 and under who cannot get vaccinated, and because the vaccine is being studied in it right now. So when we get that threshold of people who are vaccinated, we won't be having this discussion anymore about masking or pandemics, because we'll be able to get rid of this virus, much like we have chickenpox and measles and smallpox. They're all vaccine preventable diseases.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you so much. Any other questions regarding the edits that we directed the superintendent to make?
Yeah.
Rich?
One question was raised. So the plan says no masks outside, and we confirmed that in the last meeting.
Yes.
The plan also, though, said that in outdoor classrooms, the same mitigation strategies would be followed as inside. So is that with the exception of
With the exception of masking. The students do not need to wear masks outside.
So maybe even though it's one more edit, and I apologize, maybe that ought to be
Can you
in there.
point me to the
page.
I will send it to you. Yes.
Thank you. That would be perfect.
Kevin?
Unfortunately, I do have a question. It strikes me, and this isn't meant to be comical, but it strikes me that we could reach an 80% combination of the faculty and the student body at the high school. And that 80% could be arrived at with the absence of students who did not want to attend because they were required to wear masks. And we could measure at one point in time that we were at 80%, but with the return of those students who didn't want to wear masks but now don't have to wear them, we could be under 80%. How do we do the arithmetic on this?
We would need to do it by enrollment. So students who are not enrolled would not count. And as enrollment ticked up, if it did, then we would, yeah, if 1,000 more students showed up, but we would do it based on known enrollment now. And then if more students came, we would have to reassess based on that enrollment.
Just as we could now, going from if the current mitigation strategies knock the transmission rate down below the thresholds, we could go back to blue, and then if they come back, we can go back to green and back to blue, which would have the same effect of. Sure. Well, sure, it's mathematically accurate. It's just not the building specific. But good question. Any other additional edits other than Rich's on specifying that the masks are not required in the outdoor classrooms? None. Thank you again for your work on making those edits that we directed you to make.
Just a reminder regarding school board requests. We work hard to meet those school board requests. School board requests are public documents, and will go into the record regularly. If we're not getting to your request fast enough, it isn't because we don't like you or don't want to answer your question. It just is because we are doing the very best we can to open school. So, monthly events calendar. So you see the monthly events calendar. I did want to go over with you the former schedule to see if it is still accurate. The Budget and Property Committee typically met the second Tuesday of the month at 5:30. Is that going to continue, Mr. Frederickson? Can you unmute?
Sure, you're live. Thank you.
I'd like to change it to either the 9th or the 23rd, but I'd ask my fellow committee members to endorse that.
Can we, before we go over this calendar, can we talk? So we had, the board had committed, and if you're no longer committing, that's fine. The board had committed to trying to have a regular schedule of the meetings that we could depend on, so that the various people that needed to be at those meetings could appropriately plan so that they wouldn't miss meetings, because we all know how I feel about missing budget and property meetings, Mr. Frederickson.
Yep. You never
So is it your plan to typically have that, and I know sometimes life gets in the way, but the second Tuesday at 5:30? 6 o'clock. Okay. Communication, 6 to 7:30. You're gonna put time around it, huh? Okay. Communication, Janine. It's usually the second Thursday at 6:30.
Right, or were we at 6:30 or 6?
I have 6:30 here.
Kira and Liz, is it possible for you to make it at 6? Or is 6:30 better for you? Is that why we may, you know what, 6:30.
Okay.
Second Tuesday, 6:30, so it would be the.
I have second Thursday?
Yes, that's.
Second Thursday, okay.
Is that what I said? I'm sorry. So it would be the 9th of September would be our next meeting.
Oh.
I'm
Right,
sorry?
so
But in general,
we're gonna get.
the question was in general.
In general.
Just trying to nail down the in
Right,
general, and
so
then
that,
make changes.
because then what Brenda will do is she'll go through the whole year and set those meetings. Education is the first and third Thursday, Dr. Ullman.
Monday of each month, 5:30 to 6:30. I will, assistant superintendent is free vacation, so I will check with her, but I
A brief but well-deserved vacation. Okay, so the third Monday, 5:30 to 6:30, Ed Committee is only going to be 1 hour? 1 hour. How about we just say 5:30 and we'll, yeah.
Might not want to put an end on it.
The Equity Committee, Mr. Cahoon. Fourth Tuesday at 5:30. Okay. Food service, the second Monday, Mr. Dunning. Did you want to do just the quarterly ones? You had moved.
Quarterly ones, and then when we have additional one.
Okay. Quarterly, which
And is Monday a better day or Thursday or Thursday? Thursday at 5:30. We have one scheduled for
The 26th.
so the
I've got 6 o'clock here.
6 p.m.
Will 5:30 work for the other committee members? I can't do that day. But with the generally, but I would you rather have 6 or 5:30? It's either. 5:30, okay, 5:30.
Okay, so quarterly, in that meeting will take place quarterly on the fourth Thursday. Great. Okay, at 5:30. All right. The fourth Thursday just also is always Selectmen's Advisory, right? Which is at 7. But I'm just policy is the first and third Tuesday at 6 o'clock, right before this meeting. Okay. Strategic plan, second Thursday at 4 p.m.
Does that conflict with any of the others now? No.
No, but 4 p.m. I think you have
that's the
members
hard,
who can't
right,
make
that's
it
what,
at
that
4.
doesn't work anymore. So, I lose most of you at that time, right? So yes.
So then that would mean that the second Thursday, it would need to follow communications or be a different
Or
day.
be a different day. So what would that be? Set?
What about the
so,
third Thursday?
Third Thursday? We could do third Thursday of the month
At 6?
at 6?
Okay.
Yep.
And then Selectmen's Advisory is always the fourth
It's always
Thursday
gonna
at
be,
7 p.m.
Until they move it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your patience with that. We will get you a calendar. Seeing that that policy committee we are the 17th. Strategic plan would not be on the 24th then. Is that true?
Well,
It would move to the,
well, we can't.
okay, so we're going to keep
already-
that one.
That one has to stay until
Okay.
we get to September, and then that'll all adjust.
All right, food service. That's your first one, and then we'll go from there, setting them quarterly. You want that to start at 5:30? 5:30, great. Selectmen's Advisory is at 7 that night.
So not till September.
Equity is the fourth Tuesday. The 28th, September 28th.
Is when that would be, correct. No August for equity.
Okay. So I have nothing in the first week of September. Policy committee is the 7th, with school board on the 7th as well. So that would make communication on Thursday the 9th at 6:30. It would put strategic plan on the 14th. No, sorry. Strategic plan on the 16th. At 6 o'clock.
it would put Education Committee on the 20th. At 5:30, Dr. Ullman? 5:30, Dr. 30. And SAC on the 23rd. Okay. Budget and property would be the 14th. Didn't forget you, Jim, at 6:30. And equity on the 28th. 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, sorry. Negotiations are set. Equity is the 28th, starting at 5:30. Okay, I think I got everything.
Agreed. All right. Yes, Dr. Kriebel.
Do we need the expertise of Dr. Nemo and Dr. Scholl anymore, or are they free to go?
Oh, unless there's any other questions, thank you very much. Nope. No, you can go. Thank you so much.
I thought you were staying.
Oh. And I have questions. We're always here for you all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. See you later. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what I have for my superintendent's report today. We have some business later on to follow up for questions that you asked.
We do.
All right.
Thank you, Superintendent. All right, with that, teacher representative, not so much, not tonight. Okay. Budget and property, Jim.
Okay, so in your package, we included a one-page summary of the discussion we had last Tuesday night about the budget guidance for the next fiscal year, which would start a year from, well, July of next year to start. And I've tried to organize the discussion here a little bit into 4 groupings. The first one I'm calling assumptions and conditions. And the first assumption is that we're going to continue with our planned expansion of the preschool program. Second one is really a statement that just remind everybody that learning recovery program will not be included in the budget because that's handled with other funds, state and federal funds, so that would not be included in the program. We're going to need to decide, and I think the consensus is that we're not going to try to do a capital improvement bond for March of 22. We'll do that March 23. And then finally, I think everybody knows that the new collective bargaining agreement with the CBA we're in the negotiation process right now. That will be handled as a separate warrant article. So no salary and wage rate increases will be included in the base budget, okay? We can include in the base budget any changes to programs or other policies that would affect the number of teachers, but what they get paid will stay the same, and that'll be addressed in a separate warrant article. We talked about major variables, and I think you all know, everybody's aware that right now we really don't know what's going to happen to labor and material costs. That complicates Mr. Grassi's estimating process. It actually complicates the estimating process for everybody, whether you're buying paper or paint or what. So it's not going to go down over last year. It's definitely going to go up, so that's a variable. One of the big ones that we need to keep our eye on, and it's going to really drive a need for some flexibility in the budget guidance again this year, just like last year, because the COVID situation changed, is going to be the impact of the fiscal year 22 enrollment on the state revenue. So just so everybody knows, on October 1st, we take our official enrollment, send it to the state. That then normally dictates the amount of adequacy money we get the following year. So Kimberly obviously wants to can you hold your comments and we'll get to it at the end?
Sure can.
So some of the decisions we need to make, if you go to the top right, some of the decisions is what do we want to do about remote learning? And we've had a lot of discussion about that. Capital improvement funding, we need to decide that. And this wasn't indented properly there. So when we talk about capital improvement funding, we talk about the combination of what we put in the budget and what we use trust funds for. And Catherine and others have advocated that we have a target for capital improvement appropriations that'd be a percentage of the proposed gross budget. So for instance, last year, this fiscal year 22, we had 430,000 roughly in the budget, and about $800,000 the plan to spend out of the capital trust, the capital equipment trust. That total of about 1.225 million. That represents about 2.25% of the gross budget. And I think Catherine would suggest that 5% is a more appropriate number for an organization like this. So we're not spending enough on capital improvement in the budget, right? And this year in particular, we're not going to have a bond to rely on. So just a factor to keep in mind as we do that. So when you look at all these things we need to do, you need to keep in mind that there's a big chunk of the budget we can't really impact. We can't really, the teachers, the salaries and benefits, I should say, not just teachers, but salaries and benefits for everybody is about 72% of the budget. Contracts, like the transportation contract, are contracts, we can't negotiate that. So it really leaves $10 million. So if we dictate to making up a number here, I'm not suggesting we do this, but if we ask Kimberly to take the budget down by 1%, that's roughly $550,000. That's not 1% of the total budget. That's actually like, I think what the number was like 10% reduction of the amount that we can really play with. So asking for 1% is a big number. But I think the other side of the argument is we need to do something, right? So the budget schedule, we talked the other day about having our final guidance by the September 7th board meeting. And then we're targeting a budget workshop for November 6th, which is the first Saturday in November. I know last year we moved it to December because of COVID, but I think we'd like to hold, everybody on the board that sat through the discussions last year realized it was a kind of a short period of time from December to March. So we'd like to hold those dates. So that kind of brackets the discussion. We can have, I guess, some brief discussion here tonight, but what I would suggest is that you provide your inputs, and we will have an opportunity to vote on this. You also could participate in the budget property meeting discussion if you want. Okay?
Rich.
So in the past, we've usually had an assumption of maintenance of effort. Have you left that out intentionally, or is that just implied?
Maybe an oversight. So what you're saying is we'd assume that the same effort, but we'd clearly identify any newer or deleted programs.
Right. So the purpose of the guidance, right, is to create the first draft, if you will, of the budget. And so the guidance we've given in the past is assume current programming, and then we talk about plus and minus.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
I can add that.
Kimberly?
I just want to clarify the October 1 enrollment gives us an estimate, but adequacy adjustments can be and are made regularly to based on our ADM. So for instance, if a student does not attend for the entire year, we do not get all of those adequacy dollars. We only get partial adequacy dollars for that child.
Got it.
So it's always based on average daily membership.
Yep.
But October 1 gives us our best estimate.
Right. Again, this was to give a general view of what the challenge we have this year. So two other things we talked about, and I'm going to bring them up because we're going to need to talk about them. One is that Tim had suggested that, not suggested, he told us, advised us that the Great Book broiler needs to be replaced. The plan is to do that with trust fund money, and the estimates are running over what we estimated in the trust fund. So that we'll be scheduling a public hearing to approve the use of trust funds to replace the boiler at Great Brook School. And the other thing that we are going to ask for a motion, I'm going to make a motion here afterwards, but as I stated before, some of the contracts are in the process of already being negotiated. Typically, our oil contract, we've used Allen & Matheson, and we've had a good working relationship with them. We've got good pricing with them. So Tim has asked for the board to approve him to start negotiating the contract for next year. So I'd like to make a formal motion to allow Mr. Grassi, allow the administration to start negotiating for the oil contract.
Second that motion.
There's a motion by Jim, a second by Dick. Any discussion? Here, sorry.
Usually do it every year. You have to.
Any other questions? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of authorizing the district to begin negotiations?
Aye.
Opposed? Rich opposed? Abstentions? No abstentions.
And
Motion
one final
passes.
remark, and Kimberly and Lori can weigh on this. We had a discussion about the cost of remote learning. You all remember the many discussions we've had about the value of that was $780,000. We agreed as a board we're not going to spend. I don't want to say we're not going to spend that money. We agree we're not going to spend money on remote learning. The number is actually less than $780,000. We ran through the numbers with Kimberly and Lori the other day, and my notes say that it's not 780, it's really 700. Because when we approved that remote learning, there were certain contractual obligations that the administration staff was willing to give up in return for that. So that was part of a package deal. So actually it's like $700,000, which is sitting, I don't know, it's $700,000 we're not going to spend. It's still sitting in the same line item it was originally, but.
Rich?
Okay, so we released a large encumbrance for which we continue to have a liability. And, right, for compensatory services. So my understanding is that in doing that, we were essentially returning the money that we might have spent on remote school, but we still have this compensatory service liability. We need to provide those services. So I want us to be careful about saying we've got that money stuck somewhere. We actually, I'm going to argue, already returned it. I'm sure we'll try not to spend any more. Well, fine. You know what I'm saying, though. We released an encumbrance and we retained the liability. We need to pay for those services somehow. We did not need to return that money this year. We've chosen to do so, and that's good. But I'm a little wary of us saying we've got $700,000 sitting there when we have this large potential liability for compensatory services. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Kimberly, then Jim.
I just want to clarify, our council said, basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, told us that we needed to release that encumbrance at that point. That doesn't mean that you cannot encumber dollars from this year. And certainly if the board wants me to have a discussion with school council about if that's in the best interest, I'm happy to do that.
Jim and then Rich.
Yeah, so I think the correct way to state what I tried to say is that we agreed not to spend any money on remote learning, and that value of that is $700,000. Don't use the 780 number. It's $700,000. 780 gets thrown around in every discussion, so just stop using that number. That was my point.
Thank you, Jim. Rich?
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing we shouldn't toss around is what we actually agreed not to do was fund the K-8 remote school that had been proposed in the budget, which was very controversial. If we end up in red phase and the governor ordered us shut, we're going to spend money on remote school, right? So apart from that, all I'm concerned with here, and whether it's an encumbrance at the end of this year or whatever, is the liability hasn't gone away.
Correct.
And it is not optional, and I don't want things that are, optional cut to cover it.
So noted. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Jim, for the report. Kevin, one more on that?
Did you want ideas for additions to this at this time, or would you rather they came at B&P?
You can submit them any way you like. Me, or we'll discuss them via free.
Okay.
We'll definitely discuss them next week.
Budget and property will be on the. Yep.
All righty.
All right, thank you. Communications.
So the Communications Committee met, and the first thing we did was review our chair's letter to the editor answering the letter from the Temple residents accusing the board of duplicitous practices about what the unallocated end of the year funds and their return to the respective towns, and clarified what had actually happened and what the practice was. The committee also discussed a reopening plan video, a question and answer format that the superintendent would do. The video would be with the superintendent. Somebody else would be doing, it would be a question and answer format. We hope to have that done on 8/25. That's what's scheduled. The video would be 5 minutes long, and it will be another way of communicating with the public about the reopening plan and what's in the reopening plan, and help them understand what's going on with it. The Communication Committee will provide public information and advertising. The superintendent will be working on that video with our communications, our PR contract with Guilfoyle. And the committee will provide information to the public through the Ledger, through local newsletters and Facebook, letting people know that this video is now available. The third thing that we discussed is we ironed out all of the details on the public forums that we're planning on doing. So later on in the agenda, we're going to ask you to vote on the design of those forums so we can move forward on those. I'm not sure whether we need policy around those. We don't need policy on those. So we're asking you to vote on the format to make sure that this is the format that you like. We can go, and we'll go over it briefly then before we vote on it.
Thank you, Janine. Any questions for Janine? None. Okay, policy, Catherine.
So the policy committee met this evening. You will see policy JICFA on hazing coming before you tonight for a first read. If you have any questions or comments on that policy, please forward them to me before our next meeting. And it goes to second read and adoption. At the next meeting, you'll see policy DKA, payroll and procedures, coming it will not be coming before the board. I apologize. We reviewed this document. It hadn't been reviewed since 2012, and we will stamp policies now that have been reviewed and with no changes as being reviewed, so that it can be in our record that they were in fact looked at, because I think in the past they might have been reviewed, but there was no record made of that. We had several other policies regarding pandemic and epidemic emergencies, emergency care and first aid, communicable infectious diseases, all that went to our nursing staff through our administration. They were policies that came before us as a result of the pandemic, and they will be going to legal for a final read-through before we bring them in front of you. And finally, we are still developing the IHCD and advanced coursework that is being reviewed by district personnel, and that is still planning to go to the equity committee.
Thank you, Catherine. Any other questions for Catherine? Or the policy committee? Seeing none, hearing none. Moving along. Old business. Legislative update. I have none on that. So unless, Catherine, do you have anything on that? Great, thank you.
I would like to get a sense of the board if it's something they want to consider to seek the sponsors of the bill who sponsored the adequacy adjustments that allowed for school districts to go back to their higher rates of enrollment for adequacy aid, and see if they would consider legislation or some other version moving forward.
Sense of the board on reaching out to those individuals. Rich, yes, absolutely. Any objection to doing so? Hearing none, seeing none, that would be great. Thank you, Catherine. I can work with you on that, or you can do that yourself. Thank you. Any other legislative matters? Okay, Great, thank you. Community forum. So in your packet, Janine will walk you through the community forum. We talked about this at length, and this is the proposal that the communications group has come up with. We are looking for you all to weigh in on this with your approval or any changes you want to make tonight. Janine.
Okay, so we are recommending that there be 4 quarterly community or public forums that include the school board members, the Conval administration, and the district public would be the attendees or contributors to the forum. We're planning on the first meeting being the last full week of September or the first week in October, depending on our ability to actually schedule, recognizing that that's an incredibly busy time of year, but we've thought that this would be a good opportunity also to present the reopening plan and explain. We'll have a moderator. They'll take place at the Lucy Herland Theater. And we're hoping to get tech support from our high school students. The moderator will be a selected school board member, and our first one will be our chair. He has volunteered to take that position. We will send out a survey 2 weeks prior, asking people what the most important questions, topics that they have, that they think are facing the school district, and what they would like to hear more information on, or what they have questions about. So we'll select 3 of those topics, and then we will solicit questions from the general public, and we'll answer those questions in the first hour of the forum. The first hour will be a dialogue, or we'll be providing information about what we collected in the survey. The second hour, the forum will be 2 hours long, won't go past 2 hours. The second half of the forum will be ad hoc, and it will be to allow the public to ask questions of the board and the administration. The format of the first hour will be the moderator will present the topic. The moderator will let the audience know the topic status with the school board. In other words, has there been a discussion with the school board? Has the school board actually voted on this topic, and do they have a position on it? The moderator will select individuals from either the board or the administration, whoever's most appropriate to speak to this subject area, and follow-up questions for that topic will then be allowed. The second half, the ad hoc questions from the in-house audience. The moderator will explain if the subject is already a position by the board or not, and the moderator will decide whether only the question will be allowed for discussion, or and explain that the board does not have an official policy or has not voted on this particular subject area, but they'll have a dialogue about it. Again, maximum of 2 hours for each forum. It will probably be live streamed. We're hoping for a live stream. We are still exploring the possibility of making it some kind of virtual interactive forum, so that people who cannot be there in person can interact. We're not quite sure how to do that yet, though, or whether it's possible. And this isn't just limited to parents or guardians of the school district, but it is open to all Conval district folks. So in other words, it's open to all community members. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about this design?
Kevin. 200.
200.
200. Rich.
Is this a 91A public meeting?
That was not my.
That has to be noticed, is that?
Even if we don't intend to conduct business of the district?
Yeah, if you're not conducting business of the district, you would not necessarily, but have to notice it. But you're not you're still not conducting business. So it's more of a
With a
communication.
leading question, I want to suggest we bounce it up, Dean.
You wanna- I'm
So
sorry.
Rich is suggesting that in principle, he agrees with the approach, but wants to check whether it's a public meeting? Or does that determine your support for this concept?
No, I'm all in favor of it.
Okay,
I think
fine.
it's a great plan. I just think we have to notice it differently if it's one or the other.
Great.
And we should be careful to notice it.
Okay.
So noted, thanks. I will ask the superintendent to check with council. Any other comments or concerns? With that, I would entertain a motion to move forward with the forums as proposed. Moved by Kevin. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Kriebel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great. Thank you all. This should be good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Right, next. Next is your school board goals. So in your packet, and as I circulated it to you, you have a document that provides the proposed goals that are in the regular text, if you will, under each of the individual buckets. So then what I did was provide you in italics everything you all had submitted. The regular print was an attempt to condense all of that into a single goal to see if we could do each of those that way and if that met your intent, as I understood it during our last meeting. So I guess I would do these one at a time is how I'll do this, because I think that's the best way to make sure if you want amendments or word changes, we can do that one at a time instead of as a full complete package. So the first one is under strategic plan. The proposed goal would read, the board will actively engage in the development of a strategic plan that is forward-thinking, addresses the Conval mission and vision, includes a defined pathway forward for consolidation/reorganization of the district schools for consideration by district voters, and a thorough identification of maintenance and capital needs for development of a bond proposal in March 2023. Any concerns about any of the wording in that goal? Dr. Kriebel.
I motion to accept the wording of this goal.
Moved by Dr. Kriebel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Catherine. Any discussion? Dr. Ullman.
Responsibility for achieving aspect of the goal. I think that was great.
Thank you. Jim. Oh, sorry, 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 Paula. Liz.
So I just want to get some clarity on the strategic plan and as it relates to the strategic planning committee working toward this goal. First of all, I just have a question about the members of the strategic planning committee. I know there are members of the public. Are there members of the public that represent Temple and Dublin specifically?
There are. It's a geographically diverse group. We made sure that we did exactly that. So there are at various points on various committees, people from all of the different groups.
Okay.
As well as a steering group made up of members of this board.
And they will also be responsible for contributing toward working toward this, yes?
Yep, each of the strategic plan, we have subcommittees. So there's one on wellness, there's one on curriculum, there's one on athletics and co-curricular, there's one on facilities, there's one on finance and capital improvement. Each of those subgroups then has a combination of district staff, board members, people of the public, so that it's representative as best we can of the broader community. And we did that two ways, just so everyone's clear. One was a direct invite of people we thought, and we asked this board for recommendations on community members that they thought would be willing to do that. So we did a first ask of them, are you willing to serve in this capacity? We then did a broad invite to the entire Conval community and got responses from that. And then from that did one meeting already, and now we'll begin that process in earnest in an attempt to have a plan in place by July 1 is our
And
behemoth of a goal under the strategic planning. That's correct.
Sure, awesome. And just one more thing. So with the strategic planning, any board member can attend any of those meetings?
Of course,
correct?
yep, correct.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
the strategic plan committee will be noticed meetings. Those are regular meetings. So first and a second, any other discussion on this particular goal or the language? Rich?
Regarding Steve's question, I'm a little, Steve, when you were talking about the dates and the people to be assigned responsibility for goals, are those the goals that were in the previous strategic plan in those dates?
In the school goals document here, and we were asked to make comments.
Those are for the individual schools and for the district.
I thought that was planning for the future, and I sure would love to have some of these broader goals.
So the board goals have always, again, I can't say always, but in the 5 or 6 years worth of them that I've viewed them, they are always at that broader goal because we are the board. All of those other ones that are the very specific ones with very specific deliverables at the school and district level roll into these.
I think in an email to you, I criticized the wording of the past strategic plan, and I wondered how accountable that word made in the school board, but that's perhaps.
In the strategic plan, that's a different discussion than whether or not this goal is appropriate, I would say. Kevin?
But it might comfort you to know that the strategic plan has a timeline built into it. That is, it has to be developed by a certain date, and it will be in effect for a certain number of years.
It is intended to be in effect on July 1, in effect for 5 years. We are unfortunately a year out of sync because of COVID. So I am more than willing to discuss all things related to strategic planning with you if you have additional questions. Any other additional discussion on this particular goal? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of this particular goal, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, thank you. That one's adopted. Next.
Tim, can I suggest that we take the next one and make it the last one?
Sure.
The last one to be talked about?
The provider pre-K through post, you would like us to do that one last? Sure, I have.
Jumble goal.
I'm not wedded to any of them, sure. The next one then will be budget and finance. The proposed goal reads as follows. The board, in cooperation with the administration, will propose a budget that meets the needs of the district that we can present to the voters with full transparency and confidence. Dr. Kriebel.
I make a motion to accept this goal.
Second.
As written.
Moved by Dr. Kriebel, second by Catherine. Any discussion? Kevin.
I'd like to move an amendment to, after it says a budget that meets the needs of the district, before that, I'd like to insert with sensitivity to the burden on taxpayers.
Where do you want that?
I'd like it to read, we'll propose a budget that meets the needs of the district with sensitivity to the burden on taxpayers that we can present to the voters with full transparency and confidence.
All right, can you read it one more time a little slower so I can write it down so I can read it to the board so we can discuss your amendment?
We'll propose a budget that meets the needs of the district, add, with sensitivity to the burden on taxpayers that we can present to the voters with full transparency and confidence.
So that would be the amended read. Rich has seconded that amendment. Discussion is now on the amendment to that goal. Jim.
One could make the argument that the district includes everybody. Taxpayers, community, administration, board, everybody. I think that's the intent of defining the district. But I have no problem with this amendment.
Any other?
Glad you said that, because when I read that, I didn't read it that way.
I think my capitalization of district may have led the individuals to believe that that literally meant only the organization known as the district as opposed to the district at large.
But I still want the amendment.
I'm not, I was not passing judgment on the amendment, just that my capitalization of that may have led to that conclusion. Any other comments on the amendment? Janine?
Don't we do this every year?
Rich?
Yes, and by seconding the amendment, I'm not seeking to imply that we don't. I just don't think there's any harm in putting this into the bill.
Thank you, Rich. Janine?
I just want to make it clear that to the public, I mean, that's standard practice for us. We do that every single year. We try to be as transparent as possible. We put out as much information as we possibly can, and we are extraordinarily sensitive to trying to balance the needs of the district with the taxpayers.
Thank you, Janine. Any other further discussion on the amendment? Dr. Allman?
And Jim, on the district website, has put an extraordinary amount of helpful information about school budget. Maybe, I mean, you get a graduate degree, you read regard to some understanding.
Right.
So,
Well said, Dr. Allman. Anything else on this amendment? Jim?
Just two comments. One, first of all, I graduated from kindergarten, so graduation doesn't mean a thing, right? But no, more importantly, I think we talked last time, we talked about the goals. There's really two purposes for the goals. This is kind of reinforcing what you said, Janine. One is to maybe redirect the board. The second reason is to reinforce, and I think this one just reinforces what we've always done. So that's why we have it as a goal.
Thank you, Jim. All right, with that, so this would be to move on accepting the amendment to the goal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So the amendment is made. Now to vote on the actual goal as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That one is approved as amended. The next, communication. The board, working with the superintendent, will actively promote district successes and achievements with all stakeholder groups, will increase board communication, including proactive communication with the community on board matters, engagements of the community via forums that allow for question and answer format, and will develop strong and supportive community connections and strong partnerships with community organizations, state and local agencies, service providers, and businesses. Rich?
So my only question on this one is, historically, we've drawn a little bit of a line between promoting district successes and achievements, which we've said was an administrative function, and the board communicating on like issues of public policy. And I just don't want. I'm just wondering how much additional you're taking onto the communications committee adopting the goal like this.
Fair point. So I interpret that to mean you would, in support of this, you would strike the will actively promote district successes and achievements with all stakeholder groups, and would essentially start there.
Well, I asked
but
it as
as
a
a
question.
question?
It depends on how it was intended.
That's right. I guess I don't. Janine?
So I'm very sensitive to that division, and we do remain sensitive, and I kind of took this goal as a combination of both, but with the communication committee being very sensitive to the fact that the administration's communication with the larger public and the communication committee's communication with are really, while they're together, they work together, they're two separate things. So if the wording doesn't express that, maybe we do need to change it a little bit, but I took it that it was everything.
Rich?
Okay, so if it's everything, I don't think it should be everything. The administration's in a better position to come up with a district, come up with and promote the district's successes. And I don't know if you want to, I don't care, I'm not on the communications committee, but I'm not sure you want to run all that through the communications committee, right? So, So I would just leave that on the administration and just say, working with with the superintendent will increase board communications, et cetera. But again, I'm not on the communications committee, so I don't really care.
Does that need to be an amendment?
Probably, I mean, again, this is, I can't make motions as the chair. This was my proposed language to you. So I believe, as I understand Robert's rules, somebody would need to make the motion on it and then amend it after that. Liz?
Does the administration have a communications department? Because if they don't, then
No.
it might be a good idea to, you know, have the communications committee be part of that discussion.
Janine?
They have a communications contract. That's why they have a communication contract, because they formally had the administration handled everything themselves. The individual principals and their buildings, through their own newsletters and websites, and the superintendent through the SAU website. And we tried to handle it, and it became very difficult. We're not experts. We're not public relations experts, so that's why there is a contract.
Well, I know that. I just wanted that to be clear to everybody who's listening here.
Okay.
So noted. Kevin?
I'll move the wording in front of us without "will actively promote district successes and achievements with all stakeholder groups," so that it reads, "The board, working with the superintendent, will increase board communication," yada, yada, yada.
I'll second that.
Moved by Kevin, second by Janine. Discussion on the goal as presented by Kevin. Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
Yada is with a D, not a T.
Got it, check. Adopted as amended, thank you. Next is learning recovery / reopening. The board will support the district's learning recovery efforts to address the ongoing negative impact of the pandemic on the academic progress of our students.
I move that.
Moved by Kevin, second by Dick. Discussion. Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Adopted. That leaves us back to the next, which I was tasked with attempting to merge and may or may not have. It reads as follows, so that the folks who don't have this in front of them are aware of what we're discussing. Identify the district as a provider of pre-K through post-secondary education. The board will support the district in implementing the next phase of the Preschool for All program and promote age-appropriate 21st century skills in the regular curriculum, internships, dual enrollment programs, CTE opportunities, and other enrichment activities for students to be successful post-graduation. Kevin?
The reason I asked to move this to the end is I was going to be negative about it, and I wanted to be positive about 4 things before I was negative about this. And I admire what you tried to do, but I don't think it works, because I think if you put these 3 very different pieces together, it really minimizes the importance of all of them. And so I think we probably ought to pick one of these out and say, that's the one, or 3 separate goals. But I think mushing them together, it just comes across as kind of a mess.
So noted. I was trying to keep to the 5 goals. I have no objection to that concept. Jim?
Maybe an alternative way of highlighting the fact that there's 3 is put it in bullet format.
I have no objection to that approach either. So,
It's sort of an omnibus goal then.
so in bullet format, you would have something to the tune of the bullet will support the district in implementing, and then a colon, and then under that, the next phase of Preschool for All. The next bullet would read, promote age-appropriate 21st century skills in the regular curriculum, that one. And then the next bullet, the board will support CVH's effort to improve the school's counselors' knowledge, skills, and that one? Is that what you intended? Rich?
So I get the first one. We support the implementation of that by including it in the budget in November.
Okay.
The second one, the board will promote age-appropriate 20%. How exactly, what's the board action there? Isn't it just to direct the administration to promote age-appropriate 21st century skills, et cetera?
So if you're, so if I were answering that question as it was phrased, so I would say, for example, when, I forget now, I don't know how you keep the 9 or 10 years you've been doing this separated, because even my 3 years starting to blend. When we dealt with the welding positions, and the board directing the administration, I think at that time to move money to make sure we cleared, the wait list. For the welding program, to me, is the board enforcing that. So not just directing the administration saying we're going to do this, but that would be a board goal to support that action. That's how I would answer your question. But
Okay, so maybe I'm misunderstanding. So 21st century skills, when we've spoken about it in the past, has been kind of career readiness or soft skills type stuff. Are we talking about something different? Because I'm not sure what we would do, except that we could achieve this goal, our part in this goal, by having a motion now saying, Kimberly, take care of it.
fair, no, that's, and again, I was trying to merge the two. I think your comment that the board can show its support by preschool for all by putting it, in the budget. Again, I think I was trying to follow the communication one had progressed and evolved to what it is now. The preschool one had also progressed from phase 1 to phase 2 to what is now completing that project, if you will. That was so I'm not wedded to this. I don't even think we need to have 5 if you're all not wedded to having the 5th goal. Kevin.
I was struck when we first looked at these goals by something you said about this. I think it's 21st century skills goal that you saw as a door opening for community college engagement, and I was
Accurate.
and I
So
didn't hear that. So that,
yep. So that was my.
so that would have been part of what I would have said to Rich. would
That's
have
accurate.
been, if that's the door you're trying to open, maybe we should be explicit about it.
Fair enough.
Or we just need to define the phrase 21st
What that
century
means.
skills.
Kimberly,
Can I try to help for a second?
I would welcome it.
Okay, so what you have here is a great almost value statement, but this is multiple years of work, and these are 1-year goals. So to Kevin's point, the next phase of preschool for all, leaving the kind of title as it is, the next phase of preschool for all, and begin exploring the opportunities for blah, 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 blah. Like post-secondary or community college relationships, even though we have started exploring those before, but.
Jim.
One final change recommendation. We talked about, in the financial goal, we talked about the broader definition of the district, and it's appropriate there. It's not appropriate here. I think we want to change district administration here for consistency. Right? Does that make sense?
It does. I think this goal needs more work.
I do too.
So I'm willing to adopt the 4 we've agreed upon and propose that we either table this for future discussion, or someone try to get me some better language, and we can deal with this at one of the next 2 meetings. If that's I also nominate as chair. I'm going to ask Mr. Pops to take a shot at that, since I think he and I understand this one pretty well. Dr. Ullman.
I second that.
Already expressed our appreciation of the high school counselor seeking national accreditation. If I had to eliminate one of these 3 goals, it would be eliminate that one. I think nothing is more important to me and maybe to Mr. Dunning than preschool education. If I had to choose one of these 3 goals to emphasize, it would be the expansion of the university pre-K. I think also we're kind of wordy in the second paragraph. We're really talking about what people would call experiential and career-oriented education. We could reduce a lot of that language down to experiential and career-oriented. But if I had to choose one of these 3, emphasize the
Dr. Ullman, thank you for agreeing to work with Kevin. Rich.
So regarding that third one, and I don't know if this belongs in this goal or in the learning recovery, but something I've been concerned with is that we had at least 1 year worth of graduates and arguably 2 that didn't get the sort of particularly career guidance that they would have in the past. And is there a way to re-engage with whatever of those recent graduates are still around and provide some of that now? Because a lot of them are still around.
And you want to see that worked into this goal over the next, as something we do over the next years to re-engage with those recent graduates?
It could be in this goal, it could be in the learning recovery goal. I just think that, especially at the end of the graduates of 2020, the school year just kind of fizzled out on them, right? Because we closed in March.
So I don't object, except that we already approved the learning recovery goal. So would you now like to amend it and add it to that, or put this into this this next one?
I can certainly see at the end of goal number 4, the learning recovery goal, it being continued by saying progress of our students, including, remedial services to students with respect to
remedial's a tough word, but
whatever wording you wanted, but making up for lost support students could have had in post-secondary planning, that kind of thing.
Or maybe again, it's asking the administration to explore it and give us a recommendation. I think we're not talking about hundreds of kids. We're talking about 300 graduates over 2 years, and 95% of them probably have no interest. But
fair. So my suggestion would be let's we approve the 4 so far. We're going to ask Kevin and Dr. Allman to take a swing at the remaining 5th one and bring that back to us on the 7th. That would be ideal, so that we can get, does that, in other words, Kevin's going to draft it and send it to you for your expert grammar and other edits that you often provide. Is there, Janine?
Just a little aside, Kevin and Dr. Ullman, I think you're working on it. Like Preschool for All is actually the name of the program, so it needs to be capitalized.
Thanks.
The wonderful Rockport.
Okay, so noted. Thank you all for your efforts on moving us down that goal. So we have 4 out of our 5, and the 5th will be pending. Thank you all for that. Next are 2 agreements that are in your packet. One is the Shea Field agreement. That's the first one. This covers Shea Field, which is the fields located near the Great Brook and AES campuses. Any questions? Oh, sorry, it was in the Google Drive. I apologize. It was not in the thing, but you did have that. And then I need your approval to sign them, so we'll do them one at a time. The first one is for Shea Field. Jim.
For the Shea Field, I just want to point out that the major change is the fact that we've now included an amount that we would pay for maintenance services. Is that correct? Everything else is minor. That's the major change. And Tim spent a lot of time on that one.
Dr. Ullman.
I think this is a little out of the ordinary, but I'd like to hear from Principal Posting and Director Grassi about whether the problems in inter-school accessing Shea Field have been dealt with adequately.
So I'm going to yield to the superintendent on those.
So those issues have resolved themselves to everybody's satisfaction.
Indeed. Thank you. So with that, I would entertain a motion for you authorizing me to sign that agreement on behalf of the district.
So moved.
Moved by Rich, second by Dr. Ullman. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? I will execute that agreement in a moment. The next is the town gym agreement. This is for the gymnasium that is located attached to AES. This is the update to the agreement we worked on. Thank you, Jim and Tim and all others for that previously. This is simply updating the dates. There's no changes to any of the terms and conditions of the previous agreement.
I move that we accept the Antrim Town Gym Agreement as presented.
Moved by Catherine.
Second.
Second by Dick. Any discussion? Kimberly?
I just have been asked by the person managing the live stream to please make sure you're hitting your mic button.
Thank you. Okay, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, I will execute both of those agreements. Next, you have a policy for first read. That's JICFA. That's on hazing. If you have any comments on that, please get those to Catherine, and that will come back for a second read at our next meeting. The next piece that we have, all of you have had access to the student handbooks that have been uploaded to the Google Drive and were available for your review. We are required to approve those. So we would now move into that part of this discussion. Catherine.
Can we approve them as a whole, or do they need to be individually approved by school?
I have no objection to a mass one unless there's a policy related issue related to that.
There's not, but if we could adopt the high school, the middle schools,
And the elementary
and then
schools
the
as a
if we
package?
could do CVHS, SMS, and GBS separately, and then you can do the elementaries as a pack.
Well, I would have, fine by me.
Then I would like to move that we adopt CV Conval High School Handbook.
Motion by Catherine.
Second.
Second by Dick Dunning. Discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of approving the Conval High School Handbook?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? One abstention? The Conval High School Handbook is approved.
I move that we approve the GBS Handbook as presented.
Move to accept the GBS, approve the GBS Handbook as presented.
Second. So we're not going to do both middle
You can
schools?
do both of the middle schools together was the suggestion.
Oh,
No?
separately,
You
okay.
want them separate?
Yeah,
Is
separately.
that better for
yeah.
purposes? Okay, so noted. So GBS. Second by Dick Dunning. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Dr. Kriebel as abstained?
I move that we approve SMS Student Handbook as presented.
Second.
Moved by Catherine, second by Dick. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Dr. Kriebel as an abstention.
I move that we approve all district elementary school student handbooks as presented.
Second.
Moved by Catherine, second by Dick. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The elementary school handbooks are also approved. The next, expenses and encumbrance reports.
So in your packet was the expense and encumbrance report for where we are as of the end of July. So you can answer any questions you might have as we move forward.
Questions? Rich?
I move we accept the expenditure
Expenditure and encumbrance report.
Thank you, as presented.
Moved by Dick, second by Rich. Questions, discussions? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Encumbrance report is adopted. Yes, Jim?
If I can get the green light to go on. I recall that we voted on the last time we voted on the last year's report was in May. That's the only version I have. Is there another updated final version that you could distribute for last fiscal year?
There will be
Lori?
when we finish preparing for the audit. I'll have something, a draft.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next is the Dublin Consolidated School Pavilion Plan.
So, Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about this, or do you want me to cover it? Okay. So, do you have the plans with you? No? So, Dublin Consolidated School, Nicole Pease brought a plan schematic to the Budget and Property Committee, who supported bringing this forward. It is for a 2020 outdoor pavilion. The costs will be covered with a gift in kind of labor and dollars for materials from the Biddy Foundation. But because it is on the property, you do need to, while the Budget and Property Committee recommends that, which you should probably add, Jim, not me, you should probably verify that recommendation. Okay. So the board still, because it is on school property, still does need to vote for that.
Kevin.
I don't know the history of how this district handles school-specific or town-specific donations. But I come from a background where I have some guardedness about equity with respect to this kind of thing. So I'm asking to be informed about what the history is and have discussions about equity been a part of accepting donations like this. It's in my past, it was certain neighborhoods were better able to build really snazzy playgrounds and donate certain things to their elementary school that other neighborhoods weren't able to do. So we took a very careful approach to accepting donations that would leave one town that was wealthier in a different situation than another town that wasn't as wealthy. So I'm asking for the history. I'm not grandstanding about.
I yield to our resident historian, Mr. Cahoon.
So we did have extensive conversations about this, I think 7 years ago. It might have been 8 at this point. And we basically came up with the concern raised was exactly what you're saying. The concern on the other side is the expressed intent of the donors and that they weren't making a general gift. There are some districts that make it a 50-50 proposition. Half would be sent to the individual school and half to the other schools in the district. What we actually, I think, ended up saying then was that to disregard the expressed intent of the donors would probably just cause the contributions to dry up entirely. And so that we would attempt to deal with any equity issues that arose basically at the district level. We're not going to offer different programming in different schools based on who's gotten gifts. If necessary, we would adjust what we spend in other schools to offer the similar programming. Now, in this case, it's not programming, it's a structure. I don't know that.
Now, we talked at the beginning of the meeting in a different, well, actually we talked in a different part of the meeting about slippery slopes. If we do this kind of thing, does it put the district in a position of needing to build one of these things at Temple or at Francistown or at Antrim?
Kimberly.
So, as you know from last year, there was a significant discussion about potentially building pavilions on the school grounds. This actually provides us with the opportunity to have one on an elementary school property to really examine what would it take, what is it worth our time, is it being used, what would we need additionally to it, with little to no cost to the district. So I do hear what you're saying, but it does provide us the opportunity to glimpse into what a long-term plan may be.
That's a positive spin on the camel's nose in the tent.
Liz and then Dr. Kriebel.
So I think it's a wonderful gesture and I love it, and I love outdoor learning. I'm a big supporter of it. And I also have some feelings and thoughts, well, more thoughts about the intentions that are coming down the pipe with the strategic plan and what we have in there and how it will be received if we are to accept a donation, have a structure, and then decide, okay, well, we're going to consolidate these schools and they're no longer going to serve those purposes, and how that affects that donor. Or does that not matter?
Good question. Rich? Oh, sorry, Dr. Kriebel was next. Thank you.
Good point. My question actually is more related to the fact that the Biddy Foundation reached out, and I mean, I've dealt through Mrs. Kriebel, the Biddy Foundation, for multiple grants. Did they truly reach out, Nicole, or so they really did reach out to you?
So if you could, by the way, if you could direct your questions
sorry.
to myself,
Yep.
and then
Okay.
I will ask the administration
So
to
yeah, so I
decide
guess
who's going to answer those questions.
my concern is that if this money is available and someone wrote a grant, it'd be great if we could write grants for all the schools to get this, because it's fantastic the Biddy Foundation did this, but it would be also nice. Obviously, there is grant money out there to do this, and this is a foundation supporting this. So could we look into finding grants to do this for the other schools so that we could address Kevin's concerns? We'd all be happy because outdoor learning is great. And I'm sorry for being out of line.
No. I just want to make sure
That's
that
okay.
it's not, I didn't mean to, but it's important that all the board questions come in this direction so that either I can answer that based on other actions the board has taken, or direct the superintendent. If she then chooses to yield to her staff members to do so, that's on her.
Some of them have like little small heart attacks when you call their name. So, there is a very good chance, Dr. Kriebel, that we could use some of our ESSER dollars to. It's more complex than just saying we can use our ESSER dollars, because there's Davis Bacon involved and things like that. But there's a very good chance that grant money might actually already be allocated for us.
Rich?
Okay, two things, and I'd like to make a motion.
Yep.
So the first thing is I don't want the discussion to detract from the wonderful thing that Nicole did here, and I note the last name of the contractors involved, and thank you very much. The second thing is regarding Liz's point, I don't think we can have a policy that says we don't accept donations to schools that might be consolidated. Otherwise, if we're going to adopt that as the rule, I'll give you $10,000 right now, and we can never close Great Brook, right? So, and so my motion is to adopt this proposal.
I'll second that
So
motion.
moved, second by Dick. Discussion. Liz?
I just want to clarify, I'm not suggesting that we don't accept it. I just think it's really important to be aware of what is going on and the possible ramifications of that in the future and the resources. And I've heard a lot of talk amongst the board, and I realize I'm still, relatively new, but I've already heard a lot of discussions. I'm on the equity committee, so it's in my awareness that this is a valid concern, and that this is something that contributes to that, as Kevin was pointing out as well.
So noted. Mr. Dunning?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what the superintendent said. This gives us a perfect opportunity to look at the utilization of the pavilion. The question I asked at Budget and Property was just that. These opportunities present themselves when people are interested in using the facility. When those people disappear, what happens to the facility then? Does it continue to be used? I think this gives an opportunity to look how often is it used, how many students are involved, what opportunities did the community take in advantage of having the pavilion there. I think it's a great trial balloon to put up to see how this works, and leave it from that point to get the information collected over a few years on the utilization of the building. I would certainly support this. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. I will add that there is one at the Marlboro School that gets used not only by the school, but by various community groups as well. Superintendent?
I just want to note that to make sure people meant and understand that it would be to allow the building of the pavilion. You actually need to accept the donations separately. We actually need to have a public hearing to accept donations greater than $5,000 under RSA 198:20 something something something.
And my motion was to accept the proposal.
It was. His motion was to accept the proposal. Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the proposal?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Approved. With thanks. With that, accepting gifts and donations. So based on the comment by the superintendent, we will only have two. The third one will require us to schedule a public hearing for that. So the first is the Conval High School requests authorization to accept from the Friends of Conval Athletics 2 boys lacrosse helmets approved by the athletic director, valued at $627.05 for the purpose of use by the lacrosse team for their expected useful life. The second, we'll start with that one. Moved by Kevin, second by Dick. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. The next, Conval High School request authorization to accept from the Friends of Conval Athletics track and field equipment valued at $1,233.09 for the purpose of track and field training.
Move as presented.
Moved by Dick, second by Dr. Kriebel. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Let the record note that Catherine has abstained from both of those votes. Thank you. Next is position justification.
So one justification comes because we have had an unusually high amount of kindergarten registrations in Pierce. So according to the guidelines for class size, we should be asking for a kindergarten teacher at Pierce School.
I move we recommend the supporting of an additional kindergarten teacher at Pierce School.
Moved by Dick.
Second.
Second by Janine. Discussion. Dr. Kriebel.
So I guess, having heard Jim earlier tell us that 70% of our budget is a fixed cost for salaries and benefits. Totaling up the number of students at 72, that's 6 teachers for 72 students. That just seems like an awful lot. And while I support the education of our little people very much, being respectful of the pocketbook, is there another way to do this? I.e., if we have to because of class size in the kindergarten, because we can only have 18 in the classroom, can we have a mixed first and second and a mixed second and third grade and keep the number of teachers constant at 5 for 72? Or do we need to go ahead and add a 6th teacher?
Right. So just to reply to that, Dr. Kriebel, any combination would exceed our class guidelines. So for instance, if we did a multi-age class 3-4, it would exceed our class guidelines for both grades 3 and 4. If we combine grades K and 1, it would, even separating them,
What I would propose is actually divide grades 2, half of grade 1 and half of grade 3.
Well, so we traditionally don't do 2 3s. I understand that because the curriculum is so significantly different. We often, we say in education, in K1, 2, you learn to read, and starting in 3, 4, you read to learn, and there is actually a significant shift in curriculum and curriculum delivery. So even where we teach multi-age, the differentiation in that curriculum, in the 4 to 7 room is very different than the 7 to 10 room.
Jim?
And just to refresh everybody's memory, we build the budget, correct me if I'm wrong, Kimberly, we build the budget, we include the room for one additional teacher, or funding for one additional teacher. And to date, this year, we've added 2.
Yes.
Correct.
So we used up 1, plus I think last Thursday, we added another $80,000. We've got the room to move around, I think, but just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Jim.
I would also note that last week we brought to you a suggestion. We could have asked for additional staffing at Greenfield Elementary School, but we found a different solution that was very possible by creating multi-age classrooms. So just, we do look at all of the options available to us before we bring a new staff member. So it's not for lack of trying. We look at what children are in each classroom, what kinds of combinations could be made, before we say. We even look at, is it possible to add another set of hands? Could we add a para instead of a teacher, before we bring a new staff member?
Further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I see 3 opposed. Abstained? Approved. Next.
So the next piece was at your request. You asked to see what it will cost to try to work through having outdoor educational spaces and having those spaces managed properly with safety. And so I have before you what that will look like in overtime, as well as bringing on some McGurty people so we can shift other people to that piece. Obviously, we would need to find this money in the budget.
Rich?
Okay, so I was about to ask that we split this in 2 for the additional grounds crew to erect the tents as opposed to the custodial thing. But the last thing you said there was something about shifting people.
Yes.
So these 2 additional contracted positions are backfilling people who already work here?
Who work here so that we can shift them outside to manage the outdoor classroom spaces.
And so this $92,000 is for those 2 positions for the 3 months of the fall or for the whole year?
That's for the whole year. That's for the whole year. Do you want to just do like the first part of the year, second part of the year?
I mean,
we can do that too.
It just kind of seems like there's 2 separate things in this, and I'm trying to just tease them apart, and I'm not sure how to do it.
So in looking at this,
We can do
where it says grounds crew labor, and that has a 3-month thing with a dollar value versus the other one that appears to be yearly costs, right? That's
Yeah. Well, right. So I mean, there's a reference to the $233,000 in the first paragraph, right? That was for additional cleaning for COVID mitigation purposes.
Mhm.
So that's actually not what we're talking about here. The COVID mitigation is the outdoor. So I guess what I'm saying is, are all of these things so intertwined that this is one proposal, or not? And it sounds like maybe the answer is yes.
Yes. The
Okay.
answer is yes.
Then I move that we adopt it.
You don't necessarily, I think you can just, if you authorize us to move forward, then we will be bringing to you shifts in the budget transfers. But we need authorization to move forward.
I move that we authorize the administration
Mr.
to move
Grass.
forward.
Moved by Rich.
I'll
Is there a second?
I'll
Second by Janine. Catherine?
So you talked about the line item transfers. Is that coming out of object code 113 custodial maintenance and what other lines? Rolled up lines?
So I think that we're looking at adding custodial work, so I'm not sure that we can take anything out of 113 for that.
Apologize. Is that where it would be posted to?
So the custodial overtime would go into, I think, object code 120, and this would all be identified on the budget transfer when it's presented.
Okay.
Grounds crew labor would also go into, I don't know if that would go into 113 or 120 because it's a temporary. The contracted custodian would come out of a 330 for professional services.
Okay, and I only asked that because the custodial maintenance budget was already in the negative. So I
Right,
wanted to be
and we
sure there
already-
was plenty of other lines that would apply. Thank you.
Dick,
Just for clarification, are we giving the superintendent permission to investigate this and come back to us on where these funds will be found in the operating budget?
no, that was not, the motion as I heard it was to implement.
Just looking for clarification.
Was to
So
implement this.
the funds are presently going to be found in the operating budget to support these positions.
You will then, and then in the budget transfer request would then come to us as a second action.
So found is a kind word. It does mean that we'll have to find it by finding something that we're not doing, or hopefully we'll have healthcare well, we know we have some healthcare savings we can move, or,
No, I understand that. I'm
Delta
just looking
or-
for clarification that that's
not
where we're
Delta,
going to find it
period.
was within the operating budget by looking at where we may have funds that we can use to fill these positions.
So, and just for clarity, I was talking about the hiring Delta, so which we may or may not have, not the Delta variant.
Thank you. Jim?
Now I'm confused.
If you could remind us, Kimberly, how much was or Lori, how much were the healthcare savings?
Lori, can you remind, I think it's like 2 something.
It was 2 something based on the budget. We're still hiring daily, and so I don't have that number firmed up because we don't have all of the subscription data firmed up yet.
Rich?
Now I'm confused by my own motion.
Go ahead.
So if these things are so intertwined together that they can't be disaggregated, then isn't this all a COVID mitigation proposal? And would that fall under any of the various grant funding
So we-
opportunities we have?
Yes, so we will look to, this is an example of why we have to keep shifting those grant funds. So we always go to the most restrictive dollars first. This actually would potentially fit into ESSER2 or FEMA, but I think FEMA is closed. So we will move forward with those dollars first.
Additional discussion?
Where's the money? Where's the money?
Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Abstaining is Dr. Ullman. Approved. With that, we are now at the second period of public comment in our meeting. So as a reminder, if you have already addressed the board, this public comment period is not available to you. If there is anyone here who has not yet made public comment and wishes to do so, you will be provided 2 minutes in order to do so. Is there anyone here who would like to make public comment who did not already? Reminder to push the button so that the green light comes on. Introduce yourself, which town you're from, and then I will start your timer.
Hi, my name's Melissa Robbins. I have 2 kids at the high school, a granddaughter at Peterborough Elementary. I appreciate all of your time. I came for the first session with a friend. I carpooled, so I had to leave with her and come back. And I just thought the board should know that the people who came here left feeling disenfranchised. They don't understand the process and didn't understand they wouldn't be able to ask questions directly. I appreciate, Catherine, that you tried to have people address their concerns. I don't think they were going to be convinced, but I do think that you missed an opportunity for people to feel like they were going to be heard and part of the process. I appreciate that you're talking about a forum or committees, and I think that's going to be essential. Like, those people came from work, like they have kids to put to bed, and it was sad. Like, and it was generations. There was a grandma, kids, parents, and they felt like they weren't heard. And we're all going to come out of this eventually, and we need to come out of it with dignity and as a community. And I think they felt like they were dismissed, and the tone was a little bit brisk. It was. And I think it's important that we remember, like, the relationship that the families have with the school when they leave the board feeling that they've been dismissed. That trickles down, that carries over. Like, you're not going to see them, but the families are going to arrive to school, their kids are going to be there, they're going to have some negative feelings. I think we need to be respectful and responsive to all of the opinions here, and I think it really is essential that we reach out and include everyone in the forums, or make an effort to have that happen so that people feel heard. It's been a long time and they're frustrated. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board that has not already? Again, a reminder, introduce yourself and where you're from. Thank you.
Adam White, just moved to Peterborough, New Hampshire, originally from Conval. Nothing with mask related. My question is the COVID K through 12 relief package, the ESSR, ER, did you guys use that $312,000 for the school, and what did you use it for? Oh, they're not? Oh. Well, that's my question, so.
That's fine. So if you want to submit that to us, we'll be more than happy to get you answers. We're always willing to answer those questions that people have. But in general, the board meetings are not that forum. I know that's confusing for people, but that's not the purpose of board meetings, is to conduct the business of the district. Catherine.
I would ask the board to entertain an exception that we answer the question posed to us in this situation. I know it's the end of the meeting. It's certainly up to the board.
Second.
No objection. Have at it.
So the funds that you are referring to were directly used for the mitigation strategies, additional staffing that was necessary to maintain those mitigation strategies. So that was the initial set of funds that came through the first round of ESSER. We were also able, so overall, with the dollars we spent related to COVID and the mitigation strategies necessary and the remote instruction that was necessary and all those pieces, we spent in excess of $3 million unplanned dollars. So what we did at the very beginning of the year, we froze the budget. You may or may not recall, or maybe you were in the okay. So what we then began to do was take whatever was eligible for ESSER dollars and immediately put that into the grant. So we have spent the last since the ESSER money came out, going from so when we deal with grant dollars, there were FEMA dollars that became available after the ESSER dollars. So FEMA was the most restrictive financial grant that we could have. So we moved those pieces into FEMA. So some of those mitigation strategies went right into the FEMA grant. And then we started to move things out of the budget that we had spent on mitigation strategies into ESSER. We did spend all of those dollars directly on mitigation strategies, staffing for mitigation strategies, cleaning materials, masks. What else? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Big one was we did some significant HVAC work. in November, we ordered ionization units and MERV filters for every building and had them installed by the end of November. So, and that's in excess of the $300,000.
Rich.
I wonder if we could add to that, if it's accurate, that the fact that we did fully take advantage of all grant funding available to us is the only reason that we were able to return what will be something in excess of $3 million
Yes.
to local property
Yep.
taxpayers this year.
Yes. So because we froze the budget and didn't do significant spending and were able to maximize our grants, we were able to give back about $3.2 million. Give back. But we don't actually send everybody a check, obviously. But what we do is we lower the payments that are due to the school district, to the town, so that they can lower what they are collecting. Did I answer your question? If you have more questions or you'd like to see more detail, you can email me at ksaunders@conval.edu and we'll be happy to provide whatever accounting you like.
Thank you. Jim?
Make a comment. I'll address you because when I'm addressing you. I know where you are.
And
we've gone to great pains to put together a series of financial articles trying to explain all that stuff because it's complex even for those of us who spend a lot of time on it. We're going to start the next series, and my plan was to end the last series with one on that very same subject about returning taxes and use of funds. But I decided the other day I'm going to start the next series with that article. So it's drafted. I need to finish it up and get it out, and hopefully within about a week or so you'll be able to see it, and it'll explain in detail everything Kimberly just talked about. Okay.
Anything else from the board? Any other members of the public that haven't addressed the board that would like to make public comment? You are welcome to do so. All right. Hearing none, seeing none. Do we have non-public? We do. All right. Oh, sorry, I missed that sorry, that was after that one. I missed that one wrong. Thank you. Approval of the manifests.
Okay, so I certify that manifests totaling $1,640,131.92 have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against the Catucket Valley School District for goods and/or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move we,
Oh, sorry, no.
Excuse me.
You-
The staff that they can go now.
Yeah.
I move we approve the manifest as presented.
The move by Dick to approve the manifest and accept the manifest.
Second.
Second by Jim. Discussion. Dr. Kriebel? Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Rich abstains? With that, we do have more non-public stuff. So with that, I would entertain a motion to enter non-public.
I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2 for
Student.
student.
Second.
Okay, and then roll call, please.
Rich.
Dick.
Stevie Wonder.
Kira.
Tim.
Janine.